You know, April 4th should be April Fool's Day, not April 1st, because this whole fiasco regarding Donald Trump and the Manhattan District Attorney is now turning into a farce. There's a difference between a fiasco and a farce. A fiasco is there's just chaos running around and nobody really knows what's happening. There's plenty of that. But a farce is when you have reality twisted into something that isn't real. That's a fiction. And it looks like that's what this prosecution is. So all of the pundits, they're all wrong, almost 100% down the line, except for me, thank you. Gag order, of course there was no gag order. There's going to be a mugshot, and he's going to be in, all of that. It was a procedure where Donald Trump went in, okay, and he came out about 45 minutes later, and he went to the airport to give his speech tonight. So let me just recap what's happening in the global picture, the big picture, because I don't know enough about the indictments. There are 34 of them, all felonies. How can he commit 34 felonies with one transaction to Stormy Daniels or this McDougal woman? I don't know, but I got a guess who's going to explain that to us. So anyway, I entitled this Talking Points memo, "It's a Trump World After All," with apologies to Disney. So for the past 7 years, Donald Trump has dominated the news cycle almost every day. 7 years. Never in history have we seen anybody, any human being do this. So every single day it's Trump, 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 Trump. And now we're at the top of the mountain. I would say third in importance. The first was when he was elected, second when he was inaugurated, and now this. But it's always Trump, 7 years. And Americans are polarized. Everybody knows that. I'm not going to insult you by telling you things that you know. But today, I felt sad for my country. I didn't feel proud of the United States today, because I know a bit more about the personal end of this than most people do. I know the district attorney in Manhattan is an ideologue who believes that this country, the country that he's sworn to serve, is bad. Alvin Bragg thinks we live in a terrible country, and Donald Trump is one of the reasons why it's terrible. That's where you start with Bragg. You don't start with the law or him investigating. He doesn't want to investigate. 50% of all the felony arrests referred to his office are either dismissed or busted down to misdemeanors, which means there's no punishment. So he has no interest in enforcing the law, Alvin Bragg. He wants politics. He wants to destroy the system that we have in place now in the United States and New York State and City. That's Alvin Bragg's goal. And it is beyond any reasonable doubt. I've said that a few times this week. There's no two sides to that story. The man's not a patriot. He doesn't think his country's noble. He wants to tear it to pieces. And what better way to do it than to get Trump? All right, we proved that yesterday. If you didn't see yesterday's talking points, you should go to BillO'Reilly.com and watch it, because it sets up today and the rest of the week. Who Alvin Bragg is, what he said in the past, all of that is in yesterday's talking points. Okay, so even while this was going on, this indictment in Lower Manhattan, in California, the Ninth Circuit federal judges ruled that Stormy Daniels has to pay Donald Trump another $125,000. Did you know that? So that means she's on the hook to Trump for about $450,000. Stormy Daniels has to pay him. Why? Because Ms. Daniels accused Donald Trump of defamation, and the case was thrown out. All right? So this happened March 22nd, 2022. So the judge in the case ordered Daniels to pay the court costs and Trump lawyer costs, which are $450,000. It was unbelievable, because at the very moment that Trump was being indicted, a formal indictment inside the building in New York City, the ruling from the Ninth Circuit came down in California saying that Stormy Daniels is to pay him $450,000. So you can see the word fiasco is not even close to describing what's going on here. Now, for me, I'm not an attorney. I mean, you know, if somebody breaks the law, I think they should be punished. It just depends on what the extent is. So Hillary Clinton's campaign was fined because Mrs. Clinton used campaign money to gin up a phony Russian collusion situation. And she was found guilty of doing that. But instead of being charged criminally, it was a civil beef, Federal Election Commission beef. She had to pay a fine. Now, that's what should have happened here, in my opinion, with this Stormy Daniels, Karen McDougal, whatever. Okay? All right, if you did something and misused some funds designated for your campaign or for your business that helped your campaign, then you get fined. It's a civil beef, all right? You don't get dragged in. Trump knows all this, by the way, and this just hardens his heart, and he'll speak, as I said, in Mar-a-Lago tonight, and I'll tell you exactly what he's going to say. He's going to say this country is corrupt. He's going to say that the country is going down the drain, and that if you American people allow this, you're not going to have a country anymore. And there's some truth to what he's saying. And the networks are going to have to take some of it, even those who hate Trump, because it'll be a historic speech. And he'll raise $10 million for his reelection effort, and he'll go up in the polls. And remember, his reelection campaign is different from donating money to him personally, okay? And he can use the donations that come in to pay his attorneys. And just to defend himself against all of these charges, it's going to cost about $50 million. And that's our justice system, $50 million. Now, I'm a historian, you all know that. So I just want to refer back to a man named Robert Ray. Robert Ray was a special counsel appointed to investigate Bill Clinton. Okay? He looked into all of Clinton's alleged crimes, okay, which included perjury, included Whitewater stuff, all of that. So Ray came back, and I'm going to put this up on the screen, January 2001, with a statement. I'm going to read it to you. President Clinton has acknowledged responsibility for his actions. He has admitted that he knowingly gave evasive and misleading questions. The Jones deposition, that's Paula Jones, and that his conduct was prejudicial to the administration of justice. He has acknowledged that some of his answers were false. This is perjury. He has agreed to a 5-year suspension of his Arkansas law license, and he's agreed not to seek attorney's fees in connection with this matter. The nation's interests have been served, and therefore I decline prosecution. Now, Bill Clinton could have been prosecuted on perjury charges. Absolutely could have been. And he would have been convicted in a court of law. But Ray, the special prosecutor, put the country above that charge. That's what he did. Now, a lot of people, they don't remember that. And then I wrote my column over the weekend on Gerald Ford pardoning Richard Nixon. So you should read that as well. So there's precedent here in our justice system to put the country's welfare, ahead of personal politics. You have precedent. Not here. Now, there's a lot of speculation. You know how much I hate that. I just hate that. So I'm not going to do that. Tomorrow, I'm going to get the best legal advice in the world, and then I'm going to give you an assessment of the 34 felony counts. But it requires study. It requires thought. It requires consultation, which I will do. Now, one other thing before we advance this program. I'm going to be on WABC Radio live tonight. If you don't live in New York City, you can just punch up WABCradio.com and you can listen. You can listen all over the world. Okay? I'm going to answer questions, and by that time, I will have some of my research done. Okay? So that might be something you want to you want to partake in, and you can call us and ask us anything you want. And that's the memo. Joe's not commenting on any of this, and that's smart. Biden shouldn't get involved with this at all. That's a smart political play. It's smart for the country. Don't say anything. Okay, now, a lot of people don't know this, but Biden does not have the power to pardon Donald Trump on a state beef. But Governor Kathy Hochul of New York does. So Hochul could have put an end to this anytime she wants by issuing a pardon to Donald Trump for all and any crimes committed in New York State. But she'll never do it because she's a product of the Democrat machine that wants to destroy Donald Trump. But she could do it. If she loved her country, she would do it. I'd do it, even if I were in his shoes, which I'd never be. But if I were a Democrat elected by the machine, and I knew that all of my supporters would be angry with me, I still would have done the pardon for the good of the country and not to put everybody through this. Okay? So Hochul could have done that, but of course, that would require honor. Honor in politicians? So anyway, let's bring in Sheriff Richard Giardino. Am I saying that right, Sheriff Giardino?
Giardino, thanks for having me, Bill.
All right. And the sheriff presides in the Mohawk Valley region, Fulton County, one of my favorite places in New York State. Finger Lake, it's just beautiful up there. It's beautiful in the summer and fall. In February, it's a little chilly. But anyway, the reason that I asked my staff to book the sheriff is that he has been a judge also in New York State and knows the state law as well as anyone. Okay, from what you just heard, 12 minutes of me bloviating, did I do anything that is not grounded in fact, Sheriff?
Everything you said is grounded in fact. What you and I share is we don't believe in talking without the facts. So we know he's been indicted on 34 counts. The only explanation to answer your opening question is if they're charging each check he may have written or money transfer separately, then it could be 34 counts. But until you and I have more of the indictment that tells us that it involved Stormy Daniels or the other woman, we don't know.
Okay.
So it's very confusing that way, but you can't, in New York, even if he was convicted of 34 counts, he can only be sentenced to 2 counts consecutively because there's limits on how much prison you can get based on the number of counts.
Right, but he's not going to get any prison.
No,
I think the case will be thrown out. But just as a stair step, so Bragg is 34 counts, felony counts. Okay, felonies, 34 felonies. I'm going, wait a minute. And as you said, that will be explained. I guess it'll be explained when people study the actual indictment and what Bragg is alleging. Now, he did this, in my opinion, to throw everything against the wall so it sounds so bad that people criticizing Bragg, and they are legion, would back away a little. I think this is more of a PR move than a legal move.
I agree 100%. We have to go back to Bragg's race for Manhattan DA. When Bragg ran, he said he was going to pursue Trump, that he had worked on over 100 cases in Tish James, the Attorney General's office. Interestingly, he never mentioned that out of those 100 cases, there were no criminal charges. There's one civil lawsuit that is full of holes that will never go anywhere, in my opinion, that had to do with the valuation of property that he's selling. So Bragg specifically said, I'm running, and one of my points, one of my platforms is to get Trump.
Right.
And so that's one of the attacks. I'll tell you, there's going to be several attacks on that indictment, and that's probably the best way to look at it.
Yeah, he should have recused himself. And we used those sound bites last night, Sheriff. So we documented it. Again, you go to BillO'Reilly.com. You can see the transcripts and all that we've done if you're a premium concierge member. Now, everybody on the Trump side, Team Trump, wants a change of venue, but what they don't understand is a change of venue doesn't eliminate Bragg and the judge who Trump hates. They would follow, say they move it up to Fulton County where you are, the venue, Bragg and the judge would follow as attachments to the case, correct?
Correct. But this case doesn't reach the level for a change of venue. And I'll tell you a couple reasons why. You can't say we need to change of venue because they didn't vote for me. You can't say we need to change the venue because it's high profile. Donald Trump is going to be high profile wherever he is. And those things, and especially when he's contributed to the circus by commenting a lot and making posts that are not necessarily helpful, then you don't have the ability to say, well, I haven't contributed to this. So a change of venue is probably not realistic in this case. Something's interesting though, and it ties into the whole political end of this. Lee Zeldin ran for governor against Hochul. In Manhattan, Lee Zeldin lost 350,000 votes. In the state, Lee Zeldin lost 350,000 votes. And one of Lee Zeldin's statements was, I'm going to remove Bragg. So that shows you that Bragg's got a very powerful constituency, and that one county could have changed who was our governor.
Well, and it's worse than that. So in the presidential election, 87% of voters in New York City, the 5 boroughs, voted for Biden. So Trump's constituency in New York City is 13%. So how do you get a fair jury at that overwhelming level where they don't like or approve of Donald Trump? So that would be my argument if I were Tacopina, the lead attorney on the Trump team. I would say, look, we can't get a jury pool here that doesn't hate him.
Well, in this case, jury selection would allow us to ask those questions.
I know,
and it'd be a little more invasive. Well, I don't think there's enough to do a change of venue, but I do think there's other attacks on Bragg. And I think the fact that the Federal Election Commission, the feds, as you mentioned, have already passed on this case. So they already recognize there's not enough there. So this truly is indicting a ham sandwich. And okay. I agree with you. The piling on of the 34 felonies is more political than anything else. It's
more PR, and we will have Bragg tomorrow. I'm not going to use him tonight because, again, the audience needs to understand that this is a news analysis show, and I want my analysis to be sharp and fact-based, and in order to do that, I've got to study. Like if Bragg says something at 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, I've got to then research whether he's saying it's true or not. So that takes time, and that's why I want to delay this. If you want instant analysis, go watch the cables. You're not going to learn anything there because they don't know anything, although Jonathan Turley is really good, the law professor from Georgetown. Now, the state...